Hello and welcome back. Today we've got an absolute humdinger of a review for you. I'm at Margaret's on Chesterton Road, the sister restaurant of Restaurant 22. Now, anyone that lives in Cambridge will tell you that Restaurant 22 is one of the top restaurants. It's got a Michelin star and it's half the cost of its closest competitor, Midsummer House, for pretty much the same quality. So it's great value as well as being excellent. So I'm really excited for this one. Now, the restaurant is called Margaret's, primarily because it's named after a customer at Restaurant 22. So apparently there was a customer who used to come in, called Margaret, and used to dine solo every other night, and the staff loved her so much they decided to name a restaurant after her. So I'd love to meet her. Anyway, I think the idea of this restaurant is to kind of make fine dining a bit more accessible, or bring it to the masses, so to speak. So I am expecting it to be a little bit cheaper. Generally speaking, as you probably know if you follow this channel, I don't do much research before I go to these restaurants. I like to just dive in head first, but I did have a bit of a faff with their booking system. I don't know whether it's my computer or whether it's their kind of early restaurant jitters, but I just couldn't book, so I had to kind of phone up. But during that time when I was faffing with the website, I did kind of have a look, see what it's all about. It's kind of fine dining bistro. You know, you can never have too much fine dining, especially in a place like Cambridge. So I'm really excited for this one. Let's go check it out and see what all the fuss is about, shall we? Right, so I'm back, and that was pretty special, I gotta say. And I was expecting it to be special considering the reputation of Restaurant 22. But not only was it fine dining, but it was affordable. It wasn't a horrendous amount of money. The bill between the two of us, including 4 beers, you know, which they do rack up, don't they? You know, it came to about just under £200, and you know, that's not unusual. It's a little bit more than what you'd expect for 2 people in Cambridge, but you know, these days it's £120 for a kind of proper full-on extravagant meal down Mill Road or the centre of Cambridge. So you know, it is more expensive, but the quality is noticeably better. So yeah, I would say it's accessible fine dining, so that's great. That's great for Cambridge, that's great for people, so off to a good start. And as for the restaurant, it was lovely. It was quite minimalist, light, spacious, yet somehow it managed to pull off this kind of warm and comforting feel. I'm not sure how they did it, because you look at a picture of it or see some of the shots from this video and you can say, yeah, that's light and spacious and minimalist, but at the same time you can kind of go, yeah, that's familiar and warm. They've played a good trick there, and there wasn't really much to complain about at all with the restaurant. They had this really nice long bar along the window, which didn't just let in lots of light, but you could people watch. And it was great for solo diners as well. So, you know, if you want to come in on your own, go for it. Just sit along the bar bit, watch the world go by on Chesterton Road, and, you know, you're having a great time. So, yeah, a lot to like there. Starting off with the drinks, we had a craft beer called Thirsty Boy 3, which is a collaboration between Baron Brewery, which is just over the border of Cambridgeshire, and Thirsty, which is a craft beer place just down the road on Chesterton Road. And this is a pale ale. It costs £7, which I know we're all kind of struggling to get used to how much a pint is these days, but as my guest quite rightly pointed out, a pint of neck oil in Waterbeach, which is 5-6 miles out of Cambridge, is more than £7. And let me just say that Thirsty Boy 3 wipes the floor with neck oil. This was absolutely gorgeous. And every fibre of my being wanted to go for a glass of wine. Fine dining, refined, you go for a glass of wine. But I just couldn't resist the craft beer. And you know what, I'm so glad I went with it, because it was excellent. And I highly recommend anyone who's into beer or craft beer to go for that. It was brilliant. So, you know, top marks there. The menu overall was quite streamlined. I think that was intentional. I think that's going to be the fashion kind of going into restaurants at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of other restaurants do this too. The days of large menus, I think, are slowly kind of winding down. It's very minimalist, very streamlined. There's not much choice on there, but in a weird way it worked. There's a reassurance about it that they've focused on each and every dish with 100% of their attention. You know, I went to the newly opened Indian restaurant in Ely a while ago, and the menu was huge. And though everything I had there on that video was really nice, there were people who left comments, and in the Cambridge Foodies as well, not just on the video, saying that some of the dishes they had weren't very good. So there's obviously inconsistency there. You know, a restaurant can't get all the dishes spot on, but when you go to Margaret's, every dish on that menu is well executed, because there isn't much on there. They focus all their attention on it, and it really works, you know. And there's variety. There's vegetarian options, you know, you get yourself a fish option, you know, a lamb option, a chicken option. So you've got a bit of everything for someone. So yeah, I liked it. It worked for me, and you know, there wasn't a single thing we didn't like. And you know, starting off with things like the focaccia. Wow, the focaccia, like, such a simple thing, right? But it was just perfect. The crust on the outside was crispy. The innards of the bread was just so white and fluffy and airy. It was like gravity defying bread. It was so nice. And the best thing about it is it came with this 18 months fermented blackcurrant vinegar. Oh my God. The flavour and the colour of it when it's soaked into the bread. You had this kind of like yellow stain with a kind of blackcurrant-y kind of sauce on it. Oh, and it just soaked up, and because it was so light on the bread, it just allowed the flavours from the vinegar to take centre stage. It just blew my mind. It was incredible. So definitely keep an eye out for that one, because that was excellent. Another highlight for me was the chicken terrine. So I don't have much experience with terrine really, but it was a beautiful dish and slightly unusual. It was kind of like patchwork, kind of purples and greens and yellows. It just had a bit of everything. It was just such a beautiful dish, and it tasted great as well. So that was a real winner. I really enjoyed that one. So, you know, one thing you'll learn about Margaret's is the presentation of everything is just exquisite. And true to form with fine dining, I suppose. That's what you expect, but it ticks that box. So there's no arguments from me there. So brilliant. And another highlight was the Cornish monkfish. And you'll notice that a lot of the dishes at Margaret's are Cornish this or North Sea that. Yeah, all the sourcing pretty much comes either locally or within the UK. This is a celebration of British cuisine and what the UK has to offer. And this monkfish, I think it was cheek was the cut, which my guest is actually an ex-fishmonger, and he said this is the best cut of the fish. And you know, it come with this brilliant cod roe chili. Oh, it was just amazing. Added this really smoky flavour, and it just mixed so well together. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you like fish. And monkfish is one of my favourite fish. So yeah, I was just in heaven for that. So that was excellent. Another good one was the pea soup. And it came with like a dollop of cream in it. So this beautiful, vivid soup, and it was, you know, fluorescent green, and you had this like dollop of like cream in the middle, and it added a nice kind of colour twirl to it, and it just looked beautiful. And the pea really worked well with all the kind of other little dishes that were being served with it. So it's another one I'd highly recommend you try. Absolutely one of my favourites as well. Going on to the mains, the roasted lamb rump was just so good. I think there's a little video, actually, a little shot in this video where my guest is kind of cutting it with a knife, and he's barely pushing down on it, and the whole lamb just falls to pieces. It's just so good to watch. It's a beautiful cut of lamb, and the colour of it is beautiful as well. It has like a nice pinking in the middle, and it's got kind of almost like a light tarry kind of skin to it, almost like you've scraped it from the bottom of the tin when you've cooked it. You know, it almost gives me that kind of nostalgic memory of when I used to kind of eat a lot of kind of lamb as a kid. It was just, it just really took me back. It was just so well executed. I couldn't fault it. And we also went for the North Sea cod, and this come with fermented peppercorn sauce, which was just incredible. So my guest and I both wanted the lamb when we looked at the menu, but one of us picked the cod, and then we decided to share between us. Cod doesn't excite us that much generally. It is quite a generic fish. You know, we've all had it a million times, but we wanted to pick it because we knew that Margaret's would be the place where it could rekindle our love and excitement for this very common fish. And it did exactly that. And it did it in a way that really worked. So the cod itself doesn't have a very punchy taste, but it had a nice crispy skin to it, and the cod itself was very soft and moist. It was beautiful, but the fermented peppercorn was the kind of flavour of it. You know, the fish itself was the texture, the base, and the peppercorn was the centre stage. It just really popped and exploded on your palate when you took a bite. I just can't recommend it enough. It was brilliant. And even though lamb is definitely my favourite meat of the two, there wasn't much in it. So to make cod that exciting was really well done. So credit to Sam Carter there for his skills, because that took me on a ride. And finally, we had a couple of desserts. One was non-sweet, so it was a savoury dessert, and that really challenged my preconceptions of food, because you know, you think dessert, you think sweet, don't you? So for me, that was a bit unusual, and it worked. It did. I liked it. I enjoyed the dish, but I still think I would prefer sweet desserts. Maybe I'm just too conditioned, you know, that's just me. It's a personal preference, but it was great to try something a little different. And I think that's what Margaret's is really good at, is just, you know, trying things, doing things a little differently, you know, throwing you a curveball, you know. So, you know, you will get an exciting meal that does a lot of this throughout. But the one that, the highlight for me was the treacle tart, and it came with these beautiful boozy cherries, and they had this beautiful red colour to them, and the flavour, it just exploded. It just kind of lit me up like, wow, it was incredible. I just wish there was more. That was my only real criticism, that the boozy cherries could have just had a little bit more in terms of portion. But a part of me is actually thinking that no matter how much they gave me, it wouldn't have been enough because it was that good. So, you know, overall, the food was just brilliant. It took me on a journey. It was a celebration of British sourcing and cuisine. There was some curveballs in there, like I said. Everything was well executed. Everything was beautiful. There was lots of talking points. You know, me and my guests were sitting there chatting away, kind of talking about the food. That was kind of the centre point of a lot of our conversation. The service was impeccable. They just couldn't do enough for us. You know, they really couldn't. Everyone there was just almost like military grade, kind of like attentiveness. You know, it was superb. Yet at the same time, they weren't too oppressive. They weren't kind of on you too much as well, which was nice. So, you know, I think this is going to be a really, really exciting restaurant for Cambridge, because a lot of people who, you know, like myself actually, I don't like going fine dining because it's just the cost, you know, and you expect to pay that cost. It's not a complaint, you know, you pay for quality. And if you don't, you know, pay that much, then you start to question why. But, you know, I often think to myself, well, I could go out 3 or 4 times for the cost of going to Restaurant 22 or Midsummer House, you know, so I'll just not go there and go to lots of restaurants frequently. But with this one, it's made fine dining a little bit more accessible. So it's great for birthdays, it's great for special occasions and all that kind of stuff. But actually, if you just want to splurge just that little bit more, you can actually make fine dining a bit more of a day-to-day occurrence. You know, if you've got the money for it. It is fine dining for the people. So I highly recommend Margaret's. Brilliant restaurant, excellent food, service. It ticks all the boxes, as you've just heard. It's a celebration of British cuisine at its finest. You've got to get down there. Chesterton Road. Make sure you check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.